Hello, everyone. This is Political Chit Chat, and I'm your host, Gonzalo Duran. Today's honored guest is Joel Rivera. He's running for City Council District 13 in the Bronx. Joel, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me here, and thank you for sharing issues that the typical mainstream media doesn't cover. I think you bring a lot of insight to the community and touch on issues that are important and usually don't get coverage. So thank you for your dedication to the show and for what you do for the community.
Thank you so much, Joel. So let's tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Okay. My name is Joel Rivera. I've been a lifelong community activist, and my father's Bishop, Dr. Reverend Raymond Rivera. We have the Latino Pastoral Action Center, a nonprofit in the community for over 30 years, and we also have 5 charter schools. The reason that we started the charter schools was they told us that black and brown people in the poorest congressional district could not succeed and could not learn. And we didn't believe in that, and we started our own charter school called Family Life Academy Charter School over 20 years ago. We were one of the pioneers of people of color of having their own charter school, and we excelled, and we were one of the top schools in the state, and we showed that indigenous Africans and Latinos, even though English was their second language, could learn. And we've been extremely successful with that. At 19 years old, I was Adolfo Carrion's community liaison. That was sort of my entry into politics. I was also studying at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., political science. And instead of going abroad, when you're in college, you could do 1 year abroad. I did my year abroad in New York City and worked for Adolfo Carrion. I was very connected to the Bronx Democratic machine and was a community liaison. So I worked in politics, but my passion was really servicing the community. So we worked with my father under his legacy to increase living wage. We worked for immigrant rights, and I was an activist. In 2009, they gave Aurelia Green stepped down, and there was a special election, and the Democratic Party decided to give the line to Vanessa Gibson. I thought that I was what's best for the community, and I've always been a moderate Democrat, and I spoke with the Conservative Party, and they gave me the line, and I ran against her in a special election. She only beat me by a few hundred votes, and it showed me that party politics weren't really that important. What was important was connecting with your community. Then in 2015, I ran for city council against Richie Torres. I ran in the Democratic primary. There were 10 people running, including the incumbent's chief of staff, and I came in second. Now, he outspent me $1 million to $100,000, and a PAC also spent $600,000 attacking me and basically lying. I thought I was done with politics, to be honest, at that point. It was the last time I ran. At the time, I worked for NICA, which is a subcontractor of DHS, and I had worked with them for 10 years. And I was also a real estate broker and an entrepreneur since I was 10 years old. So I retired from a 9 to 5, and I became an entrepreneur businessman. The reason I mention all these party politics is that I'm the only candidate that's running in this primary that was vice chair of Bronx Democratic County, ran as a conservative, and in 2015, when I lost the primary to Richie, I ran on the Republican line. So I don't have any affiliations or connections to party politics. To be honest, it's not important to me. What's important to me is serving hardworking and middle class Bronx residents in the 13th district and helping my people.
So let's backtrack a little bit. You are a Bronx-born individual. You have a well-rounded background in politics.
Mm-hmm.
You have, family and some influence there as well. So now you're running into this City Council District 13.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see your campaign going from there?
Well, even though I always worked on the South Bronx as an activist, I always lived in the 13th. We lived at 2210 Tiemann. I lived on Bach, and me and my wife lived on 148 West 175th Street on University, and her dream was always to live on that side of the Bronx, like a lot of Bronxites, right? They want to live in Riverdale or Pelham Gardens or City Island. So we bought a home at Mickle. I live on Mickle between Allenton and Gun Hill. And I saw the district changing. While I was doing business in Miami and traveling and enjoying the fruits of my hard work, I noticed one shelter, two shelters. Now they're proposing a third shelter. Montefiere's proposing a veterans building that's going to be taller than Roberto Clemente and one of the tallest buildings in the Bronx. So I worked hard, like a lot of the people in that area, for my slice of the American dream. And then all of a sudden, I see the dynamics of my community changing. So I don't really care what someone's party affiliation is. I don't really care what their ethnicity is. I have tons of Italian support, Albanian support. I'm a Puerto Rican, so obviously my people are going to support me. I'm strong in the Dominican community. None of that matters. You know what matters? We're too rich to be poor. What does that mean? We don't qualify for Section 8. We don't qualify for public assistance. We don't qualify for any city subsidies. But we're taxed at the highest rate, and our money goes to programs that are inefficient. So when I worked for NICA, I helped 300 homeless people get permanent housing. You know what they used to tell those people? Get a good job, work hard, get off welfare. That's the right hand. Once I did all of that, which was very challenging, you know what the left hand would tell them? You no longer qualify for the housing subsidy we gave you because now you make too much money. So it's inefficient, it doesn't make sense, and hardworking people like me and you and the people in the 13th, we're paying into these programs that are broken and don't work. Now, to throw salt on the wound, we're too poor to be rich. We don't qualify for the loopholes that the 1% have, that the ultra-rich have. So we're too poor to be rich, and we're too rich to be poor, and we're stuck in the middle, and we get taxed at the highest rate for programs in the city, as you can see what's going on with the mayor, that are inefficient and don't work.
Now, you bring up two topics. One of them is the district. Now, this is the first time in like 20 years that we've had a Republican in the 13th City Council district.
Yes.
Christy Marmorato. That's one. And then two, when you speak about we're too rich to be poor, let's say the median income is maybe like 40,000, 45,000, something like that. They're not even offering jobs at that level. So any little progress that we try to make, once again, you take away from all the support that we need. Now, obviously, if there was jobs that were at the income that we needed to be, then that'd be a different story.
Of course.
But they're few and far apart.
I agree. And the issue is that New York's cost of living is one of the most expensive cities in the country. So what makes sense for the nation doesn't necessarily make sense for New York. So you bring up a great point. I know people that work two jobs and they have to decide based on this mismanagement and inflation, are they going to buy groceries or are they going to put gas in their car? A lot of homeowners struggle with their Con Ed bill, with their insurance, with paying their mortgage. And nobody cares about, we're the forgotten society. We're the hardworking middle class, either homeowners or long life residents, and we've been forgotten. Everybody talks about politics, about the super poor or the really wealthy. What about us? This city was built on our backs, and nobody cares about us, and nobody's addressing these issues.
So now, with this information that we have, what is your platforms for this this campaign?
The first thing, I'm opposing all these shelters. Do we need shelters? Absolutely. Do we need to help the least of these and immigrants, legal immigrants? Absolutely. Do we need to support criminals? Absolutely not. Do we need to pay $500 to put people in a fancy hotel that most of us can't afford when they just got here? Absolutely not. Do we need public assistance? Absolutely. Do we need a daughter, mother, and grandmother on public assistance? Absolutely not. Do we need to tell our high school students, and like the young lady that's helping us here, get on public assistance so the family could get more money? Or do we need to tell her, get a good trade, go to college, go to a university? So I'm always going to be about helping the least of these, but we need to make sure that the brokenness of these systems is fixed and that our money is going to programs that work and that make sense. And that's not happening now.
My ultimate goal is always so that we can work to try to get out of those programs.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
we have to make sure that the community is ready for us to be able to get those situations to come up. So Once again, now that's one of your platforms. What's another one?
Um, One of my big issues, and that's on my platform, is education. I believe in smaller class sizes, safety. I want to improve community relations with the police department. I want to sponsor basketball tournaments and other community events so that we could communicate well with the NYPD. There's one Bronx. My main platform is working for hard-working middle-class families and one Bronx. That means we need to take out all the politics that's gone on in the 13th. Oh, this is a Republican district, conservative, Democrat. None of that matters. What matters is the residents of the community. What matters is the homeowners, making sure that there's more programs, that they have say in development. I'm not against development. I'm a real estate developer. Complete transparency. But when there's a development, they need to meet with the community and offer things to the community that are accepting this development. You get a lot of money in development fees. This is like the quiet thing nobody talks about. We got to make sure that when a development goes into the 13th, whether it's a shelter, whether it's a Montefiore project, that there's a community benefits program. I worked with Yankee Stadium. They lied to us a lot of stuff, but at least they made the attempt to say, this is what we're going to give to the community. And that's not happening in the 13th. And a lot of these other people in the race, first of all, I've heard nothing but good things about the incumbent. And I hear, she's working hard and doing her best. But one thing that separates me from all the other candidates is I'm not tied to any political party. I'm not tied to a union. My only allegiance is to the homeowners and residents of the 13th. And I think that makes me different from every other candidate in this race.
So now that if you don't have those ties, what is somebody like you looking for to get that support?
I never planned on being an elected official. I escaped the rat race. I'm living off my investments. I'm an entrepreneur and philanthropist. I was forced to run because of the change in my community, and I saw the slice of the American dream that I worked 10 years to buy my home that's very expensive in that area going away. And I saw my homeowners and friends and neighbors saying, Joel, but you were in this for 20 years. I'm glad you're living a great life, going to Miami, going to Colombia, going to Cuba. What about us? What about your father? Don't you care about your community? You fought your whole life for the least of these in the South Bronx. What about your neighbors? What about your children? Don't you care about us? So God had a different plan, and my neighbors had a different plan. If I don't have support of those organizations, my support is going to be the community, the residents that live in the 13th. And I'll let them speak, and we'll see who the community wants to be in office. And no matter who wins, I'll support them and work with them. I'm not a career politician. I'm an activist. So I'll work with whoever's in power as long as I think they care about the community.
I'm glad to hear that. I don't get that much opportunities to speak to a developer, so I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Affordable housing is always a big topic
Yeah.
in New York City, especially in the Bronx. What do you think we can do to try to make affordable housing more affordable to the people?
The first problem I find with affordable housing is that you need to do mixed usage developments. The problem with a lot of NYCHA and I'm from the hood, we call it the projects. With the projects, which are NYCHA housings, is you can't put all poor people and low income people in the same unit. For a unit to make sense, it needs to be spread out. So you need 20 or 30% working people. Maybe you allocate some of the units for people with disabilities that have that are blind, that are deaf. You need definitely working class people in there. So there needs to be a more well-rounded development where you're not just putting one group or one classification of people in a building. A good example was I was part with one of my mentors, Eduardo Laguirre, that used to run NYCA. He did those type of developments on Clark Place on 170th, a block away from my community center. So it's a mix and combination of individuals. The other thing we have to do is inform and educate our people. For those of the people that don't know, you need to go to New York City Housing Connect and open up an account. The old days of having to mail stuff in that's over. You go up, it takes 15 minutes, you open up an account on New York Housing Connect, and you can qualify and apply for every new building in affordable housing in New York City. And it takes, not a long time. And believe it or not, there was a time when it was taking years. They're looking for qualified people now to get affordable housing. The other things that I would recommend is to contact an agency called Lenley and Wolf. They're a management company that deals with affordable housing, and also Foxy Management. My friend Shelly Fox heads that. And do your research. People spend hours on TikTok and watching their novelas and watching Sopranos and watching shows, which, if you see my Facebook, I love movies and shows, but they don't take 30 minutes to educate themselves on finding housing. They're not financially literate. They don't watch YouTube videos that teach them about how money works. Everything's done intentionally. The financial sector speaks a language that we don't understand, but I'm their worst nightmare. You know what? I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C., so I'm formally educated by one of the top universities of this country. I worked in the financial sector. I'm a real estate broker, so I understand passive income, portfolio income, and financial terms. And I grew up in the hood, so I'm from the streets, so I speak that language too. Usually people only speak one or two of those languages, and they speak the language that you don't understand so that you could be left out of the conversation and discussion. And that's done intentionally. The same thing that they're doing in the 13th. They're so busy having us fight if you're a Republican, conservative, Democrat, while they're sneaking in 3 shelters, while they're sneaking in developments. And you know who loses? The residents and the homeowners of the 13th. They got Italians fighting Greeks, Greeks fighting Albanians, Puerto Ricans fighting Cubans. And it's all orchestrated by the people in power so that we're so busy fighting that they do what they want to do by making and cutting side deals.
So with that being said, I mean, obviously, I agree with you on that right there. How do we combat that? How do we fight that?
The first thing we need to do is we need to put Joel Rivera in office. Somebody that has no allegiances, that had no desire to be a career politician, that his only reason for running is because he cares about the community and he cares about Bronx homeowners and residents and the working class and middle class residents of the 13th. Nobody else can say that. Somebody that's ran, even though I was a lifelong Democrat, I was vice chair of the Democratic Party, people could say what they want, but I've run as a conservative. I've run as a Republican. So I know that there's an emerging organization of those parties in that area of the Bronx, and I think that's good for the Bronx. I think the more parties we have and the more options, the better it is for us. Everybody's so, even my dad, the reason I'm unique is my dad is as left as you can get. He's a social activist his whole life, and all my business partners are as far right as you can go. They wear the Trump hats, they hate AOC, they're as right. So I get to hear both sides, and I don't drink either side of the Kool-Aid.
One of the topics that you hit was immigration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, us being Hispanics, I mean, it's a hot topic right now.
100%.
So where do you see yourself on that in that platform?
What if I was on Eric Adams' inner circle? I would tell him, Mr. Adams, you need to create a classification separate for immigrants that have been hardworking, that have been here, for several years. Some of them pay taxes with an EIN number. They're a healthy part of the community. We need to separate that part of the population from the rest of the immigrants, because those people only add value to the city. And if we move those people out of the city, it will hurt us economically. They're the people that take care of our children. They're the people that cut our grass. They're the people that work and support local businesses, which nobody else is talking about, which is also a big part of my platform, helping local businesses in the 13th Council District. People forget about the local hard-working businessmen that give sometimes 12 hours a day, 6 days a week to make sure we could get the basic services that we need. So the first thing I would do is separate that group. The second thing I would express to people is nobody should be supporting criminals. If you're an illegal immigrant that's breaking the law and creating crimes, we need to deport you immediately. Do we need ICE in our schools and churches? Absolutely not. I disagree with Trump, Reverend Diaz, and anybody else that says that. Those are safe places. But the leadership in those places need not to support criminals. So I was at the...
we have 2 factors with that one, though. The first one is if somebody commits a crime here, I mean, I'm assuming you're saying out of the door.
100%.
From as simple as stealing a piece of gum to committing murder. Or is you're seeing there's a balance in that?
No, I think that's the problem. They try to generalize everything. If someone commits a serious crime, I think they need to be deported immediately. No, nothing. No, there's nothing to talk about. If it's a violent crime, if it's a rape, you can't compare that. That's the problem sometimes, with all due respect, with people in your party. They want to say that stealing gum is the same as committing rape or murder. Does that make any logical sense? In what world is stealing gum the same as murder and rape?
Well, I think the concept of that is something is if you're doing the small things, it's not that far from doing the big things, you know.
I know I stole gum. I never raped nobody. I never killed nobody.
But once again,
And statistically, that's inaccurate. That's propaganda that's used by parties on the right. And there's propaganda on the right and propaganda on the left. I don't support propaganda. That's inaccurate. Stealing gum has nothing to do with being a criminal.
well, let's say the individual that did the stabbings,
Yeah.
that did stab, like went in a stabbing spree and killed a bunch of people. I mean, he didn't do anything bad. He had a rap sheet that was super long, and then eventually started killing people.
Brother,
And I'm not trying to personalize in one particular
no.
topic, but
you can't. The other thing that a lot of groups do, both Democrats, Republicans, and conservatives, is they want to take isolated situations and act like it's the norm. If you eat bacon and eggs this morning, and then you go out and go on a shooting spree, does that mean that the bacon and eggs led to or created your shooting spree? No. So there's not a connection there. And they try to make a connection when there's not. It's very simple. Hardcore criminals need to be deported immediately. Our pastors and leaders in sanctuary spaces need to not hide those people. They need to tell them, get legal representation, turn yourself in, and help them turn themselves in, so that the hardworking people that I said should be a different classification are not bunched in and caught up in some type of raid.
Well, now the second part to that is, let's say individuals that may not be committing crimes now, but in their countries they did, and they came over here, and they weren't vetted properly. So
That has to do with our immigration system is broken. It's been broken, and people want to say it was Kamala. I'm sure she played a big role in it, but it's been broken. All our systems have been broken for 20 or 30 years, and nobody talks about it. DHS. You could talk about federally or locally. Locally, Department of Homeless Services is broken. NYPD is broken. Board of Education is broken. There's mismanagement and waste of hardworking, middle-class people's taxpayers. That needs to be fixed. It's no different on the federal level. And the current president is trying to do that. I don't necessarily agree with everything he's doing and the way that he's doing it, but I agree with a lot of it.
So let's be more local for a moment.
Okay.
You got Adams, and you have 4 of his top people resign.
Yeah.
You had his deputy mayor and first deputy mayor all resign as well.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you see him going next?
I know that there's been several meetings. They were supposed to be private, but the world knows about it, with the governor and key stakeholders deciding that they should remove him. I don't think removing him makes sense. Not because I believe he should stay, but because it's wasting, again, middle class and hardworking taxpayers' dollars. If the governor decides to move the mayor, he gets to defend himself. That process would go into middle March, maybe the beginning of April, to remove him formally. The elections are in June. So we're going to remove him and have a special election, waste our hardworking money that could go to things to fix issues in the community, to then have an election a month later.
Well, we all know that a lot of the political parties, one of the tactics is to start a special election because nobody's really paying attention, and
then a month later it becomes easier.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that party politics don't take the precedent over common sense and what's best for New Yorkers. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. So people blame developers, right? My friend, Jessica Ramos, at the Mayor Forum said the big bad developers. We're not the big bad people. We're trying to make money, and we're businessmen. The bad people are the elected officials and the community stakeholders that cut deals that are in their best interests instead of the community's best interests.
Well, let's talk about the elected officials. Let's say one of them, and not to pick any particular individual, but let's say Richie Torres. I do know his background pretty well, and you mentioned him. I know his last campaign for Congress, he had about almost over $8 million.
Yeah.
He used $1 million of it, and the only other competition that he had, I think one had about 100,000 in money, and another one didn't even file the amount of money. So that imbalance. Come on,
Yeah,
what are you gonna do?
100%.
$9 million, $8 million.
Well,
What is
I
that?
only can speak about. Well, first of all, let me start off by saying, I think Mr. Torres did a good job as a council member. He worked hard. I really haven't followed any of his policies as a congressman. What the community tells me is that he's usually on the right side of issues and hardworking and doing a good job. But to your point, when I ran against him, I had 100,000. He had $1 million, and then a PAC gave him another 600,000. He called CFB and put a formal complaint against me to hold up my money, and he's a career politician that knows every trick in the book and uses it. Is it fair to people like me and you that are just really community activists? No.
Well, with that being said, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, would you tell the camera and let them
Sure.
know?
My name is Joel Rivera. I can be reached at 646-500-9275. As you can imagine, I'm getting hundreds of calls a day, so the best way is to text me. You also could go on my Instagram, Friends of Joel Rivera. There's a lot more traction on my personal Instagram, which is wow, I should just so yeah, I'm about to
Well,
say
I'll
it.
make sure you'll have
Yeah,
it. Don't worry
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
He'll post both my Instagram and Facebook on the bottom of this. I gave you guys my personal cell phone number, and my personal email is riverajoel718@yahoo.com. But the best way really to reach me is through text.
All right. Thank you, Joel, for being here today. And if anybody else would like to be on the show, please feel free to reach me at Gonzalo Duran, NYC@gmail.com. Once again, this is Political Chit Chat. I'm your host, Gonzalo Duran. And as always, God bless America. Hello, everyone. This is Political Chit Chat, and I'm your host, Gonzalo Duran. I look forward to talking to you about global and local politics. If you'd like to be on the show, feel free to email me at gonzalodurannYC@gmail.com. To get to know me better, feel free to check out my social media at Gonzalo Duran NYC. Until then, and as always, God bless America.